Welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Stephen Einstein. Thank you all for joining me again tonight as we go through and we do the daily reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. This, of course, will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning this will be the first time that I read or hear this meditation right on this podcast with you. So you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading. So August has been pretty good so far. It was a hard follow up to July. Instead, it's making good traction, so we'll see how it continues on. So here we go. This is today's reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations for August 6th. There is no more regret, nor disappointment, nor remorse where all the selfishness has ceased. The spirit of love, which is manifested as a perfect and rounded life, is the crown of being and the supreme end of knowledge upon this earth. How does a man act under trial and temptation? Many men boast of being in possession of truth who are continually swayed by grief, disappointment, and passion. It's so far as a man takes his stand upon truth does he rise superior to his passions and emotions that are unchangeable personality. Men formulate perishable dogmas and call them truth. Truth cannot be formulated. It is ineffable and ever beyond the reach of intellect. It can only be experienced by practice, and it can only be manifested in a stainless heart and a perfect life. He who is patient, calm, and forgiving under all circumstances manifests the truth. Any of the readings that talk about the truth, that talk about living in the truth, I really always enjoy. These seem to be much bigger, broader um, readings so far in July. A more general overview or a more high level overview. I don't like general might not be the best way to say it, but just like the big picture we're looking at here, right? Because we're talking about some pretty big things in this and some general concepts here. July was very granular in a lot of ways. This, not so much. This is much more big picture. And sometimes it's good to zoom out, as they say. Sometimes it's good to pull back and actually talk about it. So, here we go. Let's go through this one line by line. There is no more regret, nor disappointment, nor remorse where all selfishness is ceased. So when you quit serving yourself, right? When you quit taking actions based on your own self-interests, suddenly these things start leaving your life. The remorse, the disappointment, what else do they say? The regrets, right? A lot of times we make decisions based on fear, excitement, and we don't think about the repercussions. We don't think about how they're going to affect other people. We aren't doing them for the right intentions and the right reasons. We're doing them because they serve ourselves in that immediate moment. And when we do that, we usually end up either hurting ourselves or hurting others. Sometimes, well, usually, honestly, both is what happens, which is unfortunate. But when we can stop serving ourselves in that way, when we stop trying to just live a life based on our own comforts and pleasures, things change for us dramatically. Because we know we're doing the right thing. So there's no regret in doing the right thing. There's no disappointment in doing the right thing. There's no remorse for doing the right thing for the right reasons. The spirit of love, which is manifested as a perfect and rounded life, is the crown of being and the supreme end of knowledge upon this earth. The spirit of love. which manifests as a perfect and rounded life. So, in all areas, you're balanced, in all areas, you're appropriately adjusted. Maybe is a way to say that. I know it sounds odd, but when you just function from a place of love, you have no dependencies on other things. So it allows you to be free to allow them to come to an equilibrium in your life. To practice this way of living allows your life to stabilize. So, this perfect and rounded life comes from practicing a spiritual life, walking that spiritual walk, as this podcast is called, that narrowing path. The spirit of love, which is manifested as a perfect and rounded life. So that's the side effect. I think that's what he's talking about, these things objectively, but a lot of times what happens are side effects of living well, right? So that's why it's always experienced. That's why you go when at the end, I think he said it can never really be formulated. I think it's formulate perishable dogmas, strict rules and followings, right? To say this is the right thing to do. It's principles that are followed, and the side effect is a good life, a perfect and balanced life, right? Perfect and rounded life is what the words he use, which is amazing. The concept is um, was so alien and foreign to me. I thought there was like, you do this, you get this. That's not how it's turned out. So, how does a man act under trial and temptation? That's a good question. It's a check you can act. That's a check you can ask yourself, isn't it? How do you act under trial and temptation? What happens? Many men boast of being in possession of truth who are continually swayed by grief, disappointment, and passion. Well, those two things can't really hold together. You can understand intellectually, you could um, seem to grasp the concept of what living a spiritual way of life, living a truthful, righteous life is like. But until you take the actual actions and you actually practice this way of living, all it is all it is at that point is talk and wordplay, right? That's what he's saying here. Many men boast of being in possession of truth, that they have it. No, you have a concept, you have an idea, you have a principle, but is it practiced, right? Because you are still governed and when you are continually swayed by grief, disappointment, and passion, you're not really following that truthful path. You're not living in truth and righteousness. You're not living that Christ-like life, right? Insofar as a man takes his stand upon truth, does he rise superior to his passions and emotions and changeable personality. See, a lot of people, there's a lot of this going around today that like my personality or how I interact with you is directly in um, response to how you treat me, right? So our personalities change from person to person, depending on circumstance and situation. Now, what this is saying is when you live in truth and you practice these spiritual principles and way of living, you will behave the same way regardless of friend or foe, enemy or ally, wronging or right. You will always behave the same way, right? So that changeable personality, that's a real thing. We put on different masks to suit our needs and our situations. But when you're based solidly in truth and when you're standing on a foundation of truth and spirituality, the, the personality does not change. Your consistency is always there. And you start to rise above your passions, emotions, changeable personality. Men formulate perishable dogmas and call them truth. Truth cannot be formulated. Those are powerful words, right? The word dogma gets kicked around a lot, and I'd like to just look it up and give the official definition here. Right. Well, a principle or set of principles laid down by an authority or incontrovert as incontrovertibly true. Right. So a set of laws laid down in the sense of specific to a time period, specific to a person, specific to a people. Now, the problem is with that they expire, right? These things become old fashioned, they become out of date, they do not keep up with the circumstances and situations of the times that they were now being practiced in, right? So men formulate perishable dogmas. Dogmas expire. Henry Drummond talks about this, like in the New Evangelism. These things need to change and grow. These things need to be practiced in any time period. That's why spirituality, that's why truth, that's why righteousness is based on practicing principles. It's not situational, right? We don't get a direction for every single instance we're in, right? There's not a rule book that says when faced with a lie about this specific topic, you do this. No. When faced with a lustful temptation of this sort, you do that. No, it doesn't work like that. It's a principled, disciplined, virtuous set of way of living that is embraced, that brings about truth and righteousness. It's not dogma. Truth cannot be formulated. It is ineffable and never beyond the reach of intellect. Right? It's a when you quit serving yourself, because our mind is basically there to serve ourselves. Our spirit and our soul has been given a body and a mind to use for its own purposes, right? And so our mind mainly is used to serve ourselves. So our intellect has a hard time wrapping around anything like this. Objectively, we can give um, maybe some quantification of it or some um, background to it, but it's through experience that we actually learn this stuff. It's through experience and getting the side effects of peace and joy that we know what truth actually is. Truth exists in the gap between the right action for the right reason and the side effect of joy, right? That's where it is. It walks right there. It's a thing that we can't quite grasp intellectually. It can only be experienced by practice. It can only be manifested in a stainless heart and the perfect life. So that is what we strive for. That is what we strive for. We practice it. We allow it to manifest. We don't have the goal of it manifesting. We allow it to manifest in the practice of a purifying life, which leads to a stainless heart and a striving, I'm going to say it how he said it, and a perfect life that comes through the purifying of ourselves, of our attentions and our souls, our hearts, our thoughts and our actions. Those three things: souls, thoughts, actions. And he ends it with this: he who is patient, calm, and forgiving under all circumstances manifests the truth. So that's what I'm saying. Truth is standing on a foundation, steadfast and solidly, and choosing how you are going to behave. Not some of the time. Not when it's convenient. Not when you like the person. Not when the person likes you. Not when you dislike the person. Not when the person's wronged you. Living truthfully is about choosing to live by spiritual values and principles, regardless of circumstance. So he who is patient, calm, and forgiving, great principles and values to live by there under all circumstances. The principle practice is not the variable. The circumstance is the variable. The constant is the principles, which was which blew me away when I first started living this way of life. It really did. It really was difficult for me to wrap my head around that. So, but all right. I love today's reading. This one was great. Um, August 6th, everybody. Thank y'all for joining me for it. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's. It's going to be, I'm sure, another great one. And I will be back on and going at it. So until next time, thanks.